Hello, MCU fans! Today we're going to take a look at several Agatha All Along theories that you all have left in the comments. As you know, I read and respond to everything, and man, some of your theories have been amazing. So I'm going to go through my favorites. Now, there will be spoilers for episodes 1 through 4, but as long as you're okay with that, then let's dive right in and see what we can find out. Don't forget, we have an October contest running all month long. Be a subscriber, leave a comment. You could win a book or a steelbook. Best of luck. And we have a membership option with lots of cool perks, so you might check it out in case you're interested. All right, so the first theory is that Rio was the one that actually injured Teen in episode 4. Several of you had this theory. So the way the theory goes is, remember when Teen was knocked across the room and through the glass window? And of course, Agatha looked like in a total panic when it happened. Was this the demon doing it? Or was it actually Rio testing to see how important to Agatha Teen actually was? Because remember, in episode 1, Rio has shown she has the ability to cause intense blasts of air, right? She blew the door open. Here she is. Then when she confronts Agatha, notice she does this little flick, and Agatha flies across the room. And, so clearly Rio has the ability to do this. And as some of you pointed out, so this is her on the left, obviously in episode 1, but on the right, that's her, that's Rio sitting on the couch. Maybe that's her flicking her fingers. It's hard to tell. We barely can see it in frame. But if this was Rio testing to see how important Teen was to Agatha, that makes a whole lot of sense. Love that theory. Let me know what you think. Then a follow-up theory, this was actually from Twitter, is did Rio then help to heal Teen? Now, definitely Jennifer did the potion that did the major work, and I think it's really important we not take away from the significance of what Jennifer did. I mean, I love when Lilia says, look what you did. It's so important to Jennifer's character growth to realize she has the ability to work her potions and work her magic. But it is interesting how Agatha then looks over at Rio, and Rio's like, what? I can be good too. Remember, if Rio is the one that damaged Teen, maybe Rio also helped with the healing. Interesting theory, not necessary to fit with the first theory, but I think they do go together pretty well if you combine them. Plus, keep in mind, Rio does have the ability to heal. We saw that when she licked Agatha's wound and healed her hand. So there was already a hint early on that Rio, maybe death. We've seen so many clues for that, but she also seems to have some life in her, or the ability to give life or to heal. Very interesting. All right, so as many of you know, my theory has been that Rio has been disguising herself as Mrs. Hart all along. So several of you had an interesting extension to my theory. So first of all, the main reason I have this theory is I just don't think they would have been able to open the witch's road without a green witch, as Agatha's saying here. And I don't think Mrs. Hart's green thumb is enough. Granted, it's analog magic to be a green witch through, gardening. But still, I think that's the biggest reason. But so people said, hey, what if Rio's been Mrs. Hart all along? Remember when Teen gets hit by the car? And of course, Agatha is totally distressed by it. And it's Mrs. Hart that did it. Well, what if this was actually Rio? Because remember, it doesn't look like Agatha even left the house, or maybe at most was inside the house and walked into her yard during episode 1 inside that spell. So maybe she never ran out in the alleyways and chased Teen. Maybe instead she was just running through the house, and it was Rio disguised as Mrs. Hart that pushed him to the side. And in the spell, that was Agatha thinking he was hit by a car. Very, very interesting, right? I mean, what if Rio has really been playing the long game with Mrs. Hart? Also, a couple of other of you noticed some other things that Rio said when she first arrived on the scene. What you noticed is she said, heard you guys were having a party. Well, that's something that only Mrs. Hart would have known, that she was invited to a party. And also she said, I was in the neighborhood. Well, was she in the neighborhood because she was actually Mrs. Hart the whole time and it was pretending to be her corpse? So anyway, I realize this may not be a good theory. And in fact, in fairness, to show both sides, Player Sheets basically told me that I've got copium for Sharon's death and then went on to tell me all the reasons why. It's a great comment. And in particular, Player Sheets is pointing out, if Rio was pretending to be Mrs. Hart, why did Mrs. Hart, almost get killed by getting sucked into the ground? And how did Mrs. Hart / Rio know to have this hallucination tying back to WandaVision? I agree. Those are two good points. These two things are odder if that's actually Rio pretending. Of course, Rio may be playing the long game, faking her death almost there in by getting sucked into the bog, and then pulling back knowledge maybe she got from Agatha of what happened during the Hex, during WandaVision. But yeah, anyway, I'm 50-50 on this, but I do think it'd be cool if Rio ends up having been Mrs. Hart all along. Okay, so this is less of a theory and more of just a really cool observation. So the question is there significance to the fact that each time they go down a level after the trials? Because remember, when they first enter the road, they go down a set of stairs. And then after they go into the oven after the first trial, they slide down lower. And then after the second trial, the piano opens and they go down again. So it's almost like they're going down through the layers of hell. Mephisto, right? Who knows? This may have no significance. It may just be a cool little thing that happens to be accidentally happening. But I think everything in this show ties into something. So let me know your thoughts. Why do you think they keep going down a level, and will we see it continue? Okay, so a ton of you, like as in a ton of you, notice that the Get Off Me divination by Lilia has now occurred. I can't believe I missed this. Anyway, because especially since I've been watching for it, Anyway, so two things. First of all, in the first episode, the actual first divination was when Lilia screams, right? Just randomly seemed to scream. Well, that scream came true in the fourth episode when the demon landed on her, I believe. Lilia screams. So then, all the rest of you who noticed this are totally correct. Her second divination was, get off me. That's what she randomly said. That is extremely close to get it off me. It's not the exact words. I wish it was the exact words, but I think that's it. I think that is our first two divinations come true. So it seems that she is seeing her future self. In fact, one person even theorized, is this tied to quantum physics somehow, right? Is she somehow seeing future versions of herself or future visions of herself? Very interesting. But anyway, okay, so I think those two did come true. Thank you to everybody that pointed that out. So here are some of the other ones to keep watching for, right? When she says, Alice, don't. And then she also says, try to save Agatha. So some people have tied that together. Alice, don't try to save Agatha. Ooh, wow, that's menacing, right? Or it could be, Alice, don't, do whatever you're doing. Instead, try to save Agatha. And then these two are interesting. When she says, we really kind of hated each other in the beginning, but now. And then another divination is, I love you guys. Those two really seem to go together. So sometimes she's getting them in pairs, in pieces of a dialogue. And I can't wait to find out where this one is. Which is it? Am I wispy or am I kooky? That one's crazy. So yeah, very cool. I love her divinations. Just so many neat aspects to this show. All right, so speaking of divinations, this is a fantastic comment about when she has divinations about the tarot cards themselves, she's realizing when they represent the different characters. What I mean by that is, or what the commenter means, is when she shouted out Three of Pentacles, and on the left, by the way, is the original card, and on the right is the card that Marvel released with the promo. So Three of Pentacles is when she divined who the Coven is. So she called it out because she was about to talk about who the Coven members are. When she said High Priestess, that's more obvious. She sees Jennifer, and Jennifer's card is the High Priestess. But this is what's really significant. When she says Three of Swords, that is Agatha's card. The reason she's saying it is she's seeing how important Teen is to Agatha. How important, like Agatha thinking that's her son, that's Nicholas, that's her broken heart that has the swords going through it. I love that. So that was when she almost like maybe the rest of us realized, oh, this is the Three of Swords. This is her broken heart. I'm seeing it actually happening. So with that in mind, there are 4 more cards that Marvel released: Queen of Cups, Knight of Wands, the Tower, and Death. And those represent Lilia, Alice, I believe Teen, and then I believe Rio. So we'll see if she calls these out. There's just more stuff for us to keep an eye out on. I love this stuff so much. All right, so then somebody else noticed, or a couple of you noticed rather, that they're taking images from multiple cards, not just one card. So here's what's interesting. On the left, that is the original tarot card for Queen of Cups. In the middle is the card that Marvel released that relates to Lilia. But if you notice, they barely look the same. I mean, other than there's a lady and a cup, that's it. A lot of the imagery was stolen from the Four of Wands. Isn't that interesting? The castle, even the dude in the background, the 4 pillars, etc. So, I mean, I'm not an expert on tarot by any means. I am a novice, but it is interesting to just notice how the artistry was pulled from multiple cards. Does that mean something? Another example is Alice's card, the Knight of Wands, actually pulls more imagery from the 7 of Wands, because notice the posture that Alice is in and the the wand, I guess. It looks more like a giant branch, but regardless, notice how the imagery was taken from that, less so from on the far left. That's the official Knight of Wands card. And really interesting is death. I think this one's fascinating. On the left, again, is the official card. Middle is Marvel's card. On the right is the Magician card. Notice the flowers on the top. So are they basically trying to say, hey, two different cards? You have to actually look at two different tarot cards to fully understand this character. Man, oh man, oh man. So much work was put in to all these details. Awesome. Okay, several of you noticed that Jennifer is bound by her trauma and gave some really good reasons for it. So let's look at this. We know that Jennifer was an 11th generation root worker, but even more important, a midwife. We know that she was invited to this prestigious event in Greater Boston, and it was to share her expertise. However, it was a trap, right? And she says, I still don't know how they did it, bound me without magic, and then she even says, so much for do no harm. And of course, this dude, this doctor, this totally evil doctor, is clearly part of it. Now, maybe he tried to physically drown her, or maybe her being shoved in the water is more how she felt, but didn't physically actually happen. But here's what's interesting. I did not know this. So J. Marion Sims, who's the dude on the far right, he is the father of gynecology. And boy, if you look at his history, it is not good on how he treated African-American women. Many of them would have been slaves even at the time. But regardless, just treated them terribly. Did operations without anesthesia. He was awful. Here's another image of him here and how he's treating, a slave, basically. So if... I don't believe Jennifer was treated as a slave. No, because hers, I think she said she's only been around, this was 100 years ago when this happened, but she said she's a midwife. So is it possible this doctor is at least an analogy to this J. Marion Sims dude? Notice there's no mustache, so I don't know if they're trying to point directly to him, but more to how African-American women were treated in the field of gynecology. And maybe she was treated so poorly and was humiliated by something that occurred when she was supposed to come as an expert. So that is very interesting. It won't be a direct analogy, but I do think that they're trying to make us understand how horribly women, but also particularly African-American women, were treated in the medical field. Let me know your thoughts on that, but probably she needs to overcome whatever trauma this doctor did to her. Wild. Okay, this is an interesting theory. It's kind of scary, actually. Is Alice's story finished? Meaning, is she going to be the next one to die? So the theory points out that her demon is gone. She destroyed it. So Jennifer is still bound. Jennifer's story is not done. Alice's story, you could argue, is kind of done. It's resolved. Does that mean she's the next to die? Oh, I hope not. Wouldn't that be tragic for her to get rid of her demon and then in the very next challenge to die? Obviously, we'll find out in the next 2 days. But even if it's not the next challenge, is she destined to die and not make it through the road? Ooh, boy. Okay, so this one is interesting. Did Teen put the sigil on himself? So a couple of you suggested this and gave some really detailed reasons for it. I'm going to touch on some of those reasons. But you can, if you want to pause at any time and read these comments in detail, there's some great comments. But okay, so what do we know about the sigil? Well, he did ask Agatha, did you put it on me? And she says, no, but then again, I wouldn't even know because the sigil works on the witch who cast it as well. So Teen could have cast it on himself and then literally forgot he cast it because that's the way the spell works. Isn't that interesting? And that they're not destroyed, they're lifted. So the answer is when they're no longer needed, that's when they'll be gone. So for some reason, let's just say it's Teen for the minute here, Teen cast a sigil on himself. The question would be why? Because that will lead to why it would be lifted. Well, maybe the clue is when they said, someone's put a sigil on that boy, right? A sigil is a redaction spell that hides something, in this case, you from witch folk. Okay, so if it was Teen that cast it on himself, perhaps he did it to hide from other witches. The question would be why? Also, another clue that it might be Teen is, she says, don't look at me, I didn't put that clumsy glamour on him. So at least Agatha is viewing it as a clumsy spell, as a spell that someone would cast that didn't really know magic all that well. Well, here's something interesting. If we look back at WandaVision, and particularly how old the boys were. Remember when Wanda says, boys, your father and I don't think you're ready to properly care for an animal. They're referring to the dog until you're at least 10 years old. And then they age up to 10. Well, I'm bringing that up to say Billy, when the hex would have gone down, would be 10. And thus his magic would be, well, pretty rudimentary. So there's a theory I've been floating out, and just a quick reminder of where I've been going with this theory is we know that Wanda is capable of spontaneous creation, meaning she literally could have created souls for Billy and for Tommy, and maybe didn't even know it. We know there was a near death in Westview on December 14th of 2023, and a lot happened to Teen when he was 13, which is also 2023. We know his parents are alive. He's also from Eastview, and there was a car crash in Eastview 1 hour before the time of death. So I'm thinking this is the event when he was 13, when he said a lot happened to him. The 2 airbags deployed, saved his parents, but I think Teen, whoever Teen is, died. I think Billy's soul, which also nearly died when the hex went down, went into Teen. Then Billy got scared because obviously a witch, Agatha, was trying to come after him, and that's why he cast the sigil on himself and then, of course, forgot all about it. That might also be why Teen acts a little less maturely at times than you might expect a 16-year-old. And I'm not saying that to knock Joe Locke's acting. He's fantastic. I'm saying there are just times when he seems like a littler kid than 16. So I just think all that fits together really, really well, and that Teen might be the one to put the sigil on himself. Also, this is interesting. I already mentioned that Wanda can create spontaneous creation. So in other words, she could have created souls and not known it. But did this protection song, if you will, the song that she sang over the kids, was it kind of a protection spell? In fact, did she even know if it was a protection spell or not? Maybe this is something she just learned as a kid, but now that she's able to actually, cast magic, did it actually end up protecting them? Now, I don't mean she cast the sigil on them. I don't think that's even possible. But is this why they were able to stay around when the hex was gone? Because she cast a spell of protection without even knowing it. Fascinating. So, all right, there's all that. Okay, then finally, I love this. I'm saving this one for last. Again, you can pause if you want to read the whole comment. It is beautifully written. But the gist of it is, will Teen heal Agatha's loss of Nicholas? So, where are we going with this? Okay, so remember, in WandaVision, we learned that Wanda's mother basically was willing to kill Agatha for seemingly good reasons, because Agatha had learned the dark magic, but Agatha is pleading, please, mother, don't. Please, please. Eventually, her mother even tries to deal the death blow, right, to kill Agatha. And in response, Agatha ends up killing her and then takes her brooch. So one would think Agatha might have mommy issues, right? I mean, certainly, her own mother tried to kill her, and she had to kill her own mom in response. So is it possible, therefore, that that's why Agatha was so willing to give up her son for power, to get the Darkhold? Because that's not something a mother would normally do. The one thing in the world a mother would never do is hurt her own children, yet seemingly Agatha gave up Nicholas. Is that because she was so rejected by her mother? And so she lost the normal mother-child, protection that you would have for your own child, because her own mother was willing to throw her away. So is it possible that even though she's been told, and let's just take Rio at her word here, that that boy isn't yours, that that boy is not Nicholas, is it possible still that Agatha, through her, care and nurture for Teen, who is going to end up not being her son. I do believe that it is not going to be Nicholas. But is it possible that because she's willing to save what effectively is Wanda's son, so someone else's son, does that help her heal her rift with her mother? In fact, will her mother even appear on the road at some point to help with that healing? Boy, what a cool way to resolve Agatha's story. If her own mother issues with her own mother being solved allows her to want to save Wanda's kid. My word, that is amazing. I love it. So thank you all for all of the fantastic theories you keep leaving. Again, I read them all. And in fact, we have lots more to theorize about in the weeks to come, right? So much more. This is such a great series. So leave your comments, let me know about your theories, and I will read and respond to all of them. Also, don't forget, October contest, be a subscriber, leave a comment, win a book or a steelbook, and there's that membership option in case you're interested in that. And then I always mention the Discord. In fact, here we are talking about that Twitter. or that tweet rather, sorry, or that X, whatever. What do they call it anymore? It's on Twitter. Anyway, about the fact that Rio might have helped heal Teen. So 1,700 members on the Discord. We would love for you to be part of it. And I will leave a pinned comment so you can join. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we'll all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, the ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.